Today's sermon is entitled No Greater Love. There's a wonderful gospel song that says, there is no greater love, there is no greater love. And it used to be the opening song for a passion play that I wrote and directed at Salem for many years. Last week as we were rehearsing during choir rehearsal, we were sort of joking and going, oh, all the songs have something to do with love. And as Christians, we often get a little loosey-goosey with this concept of love, right? We know that it's a big part of who we're supposed to be in God, and yet we don't really give it a whole lot of deep theological attention. It's just something that we do. It's supposed to be about who we are. We want to let people know that we love you with the love of the Lord. And it becomes part of the platitudes that we share with one another. Even when we're talking on the phone with people that we love in a different way. You know, the Greeks had 3 different words for love to convey the kinds of love that we have. There's eros, and that's the love that you'd have for a spouse or partner, girlfriend or boyfriend. There's filial love, which is the love that we have for friends. It's the word that the city of Philadelphia comes from, filio. And then there's agape love, which is akin to what we understand to be the love of God. It's that kind of love that isn't easy, but it matters, and it glorifies God. It reflects how God's love is manifest among us. So this morning I want to talk about those 3 aspects of love, that it isn't easy, but it does matter, and it glorifies God. Loving people all the time is not easy. Anybody in here ever been in a bad mood? And been annoyed by the people who are the very closest to you? Be they spouses or children or grandchildren or friends or co-workers? Even though you think you are perhaps among God's finest disciples. As Walter says, you with your wonderful self. You are just what God ordered when he said, make that person a disciple. And yet we find that there are times when our patience is limited. We find that there are times when people that we really do admire and respect just drive us batty. Our spouses sometimes do things we don't like. I always tell young people, you know, you don't marry people to change them. What you marry is essentially the person you get. And you live and you grow together, and there are things about even the people that we're closest to that we don't like. Paul reminds us in 1 Corinthians 13 that love is patient, it's kind, it doesn't bear grudges, it doesn't accuse each other, it is able to somehow see beyond our faults. And you want to say, Paul, really? How can love be this thing that is so perfect and so wonderful? How can love set us up for these kinds of relationships when we know that every turn we are not patient? We are often not kind. We are often not forbearing. We often do count chips. Counting chips was a practice that Walter and I had when we were dating. Actually, I would say I had. So when we would make a mistake or be wrong about something, or, you know, one person win one argument, and I would say, well, that's okay, because, you know, last time you were wrong. And he said to me one time, are we counting chips? Is this what we're doing? Are we keeping track of who's right and who's wrong? Be careful when you ask for a spiritual partner. You may just get it. And it may take away all of your little human excuses for why you want to hold grudges. But if God is really looking for us to truly be patient and kind and not to bear grudges and to go beyond what we would normally want to do, when we're tired, my son surprised us last week and stopped by the house on his way back from his cruise with his friends. I was so tired. All I really wanted to do was come home and take a nap. And I called Walter to say I'm on my way home with food. And he said, Mitchell is here with Audrey, his girlfriend. They were there till 11 o'clock. Mom was tired. Mom wasn't exactly so patient, but Mom was so glad to see her only child that Mom drank Diet Coke and propped herself up. We looked at pictures and we listened to old CDs. There are times when doing what we need to do for the people that we love requires us just to go a little beyond the distance. Have you ever gone to a movie that you just didn't want to go see, but you went because somebody who matters to you wanted to see the movie? How many of you, your partner or the person that you live with, has different TV habits than you do, likes different movies? Sometimes you just got to go and sit in a chair, watch the movie that you really wouldn't be that interested in, just because you want to send a signal that you care. You watch Disney or other children's movies over and over again because you love your kids and your grandkids and you want to show them love. You stand in the hot sun in August for a full day, not because sometimes we have energy. There are all things we could all be doing on the day of the back-to-school fair, but because we understand that showing and manifesting love in really powerful ways matters. So love isn't easy. There are always things we could be doing or want to do, and sometimes the people that we really are intending to reach out to are the very people that make us hard to love. But at the same time, Jesus reminds us in this text that as the Father has loved me, so I love you. Jesus understands that because he is loved, he is therefore required to show that same love. And if we can just remember how much love has been shown to us, then maybe it makes it a little easier to remember that just like that meant so much to me, that gesture, that expression of kindness, that comfort that I received knowing that God was with me, maybe just because I have received God's love, as God has loved me, so I love you. You ever been in the store and the customer service clerk was rude, not careful, or the drive-through? You see this posted on Facebook all the time. If people don't want to deal with the public, why are they in these customer-facing jobs or entities? I share my frustration about the grocery store all the time. But then I remind myself that I am a minister of this gospel that Jesus is impelling us, commanding us to spread. Not just the gospel of his love and not just the gospel of his death and resurrection, but the gospel that God loved him, and so we must love others. The gospel that Jesus loves us, and so we must love others. The gospel that says, no, it's not easy, but it matters. It may matter very much, that kind word that you offer to a neighbor. It may matter very much that you returned home to be with a family that you were close to. It wasn't until I lost a grandparent close to me and I began to see people show up that I began to really understand how important presence really is. You don't have to do anything or say anything or do a whole lot. Sometimes it just matters to people that you are there. Sometimes a warm look, a touch, a hug, a card, all of these expressions of love matter. Sometimes being silent is the most powerful expression of love that you can make. Listen to someone who's just pouring out. I do this a lot in my work, both here and with students, and sometimes the most love I can show is just to listen and just to give them the sense that I am paying attention, that I care. There may be nothing I can do. I can't necessarily pray with every student at school. It depends on who the student is. With you, I can pray, and sometimes I can't do anything other than pray. But love matters. Never think that you're showing love or showing kindness doesn't matter. It matters in the most profound way. The smallest gesture, the biggest gesture. My phone's been blowing up this morning, people sending texts saying, Happy Mother's Day. The wife of one of my cousins posted on Facebook, "I'm not going to bother you all tomorrow with texts on your phone. I'm going to let you have Mother's Day in peace." So I could be annoyed that my phone is blowing up and buzzing constantly, or I could see that as a sign that there are people who care enough about me who include me in their little texts. It matters. It matters. Love isn't easy. Love matters. And most importantly, what Jesus is really telling us is that love glorifies God. It edifies God. A little later in the Gospel of John, in John 17, Jesus will pray a prayer where he asks and thanks, first of all, God for these 12 that he's been given. He says, "I've poured everything I have into them. I've done everything I could with those that you have given me. And now, God, I pray that you would make them one." He prays that they and those who come to believe in him because of them, in other words, Jesus has already prayed for us. Some people say that that's really the Lord's Prayer. And Jesus is praying for the people who will come to believe in him because of his disciples. "Lord, make them one so that the world will know that you have sent me." That love for the disciples, it wasn't going to be an easy task. There were people who would literally give their lives. All of the disciples except for John were martyred. All because they refused to ignore and deny the truth of the resurrection. Down through the ages, Christians were fed to the lions, as we know. They had to hide out. There are still places in the world where you can't say that you're a Christian. There are still places in the world where if you say you're a Christian, even places in the United States, some assumptions are made about what you believe and even about your politics. And it makes it hard to hold fast to the things that we believe, not only about Jesus, but about God. What is the character of this God that we serve? This was a question that John Dominic Crossan, scholar of the historical Jesus, asked in our Bible study this past week. He really asked 4 questions as we were talking about how to think theologically. What's the character of your God? What's the content of your faith? What's the function of your church? And what's the purpose of your worship? Those are tight questions to ask. When we think, "Oh, being Christian is just about coming to church and about doing good things for other people." But at the heart of all of this is a love that gets expressed in not only unity but liberty. A love that gets expressed in going the extra mile. A love that gets expressed in being inclusive and welcoming. A love that says that we take this faith so seriously that we are able, only because we abide in God's love, we are able to share that love and express that love in ways that we couldn't do on our own. Earlier in John, and because of our special series, we weren't able to share the lectionary text where Jesus says, "I am the vine, and you are the branches. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, you'll be able to do those things that I've commanded you to do." Love begins with relationship. Do you remember when you had a crush on somebody or dating somebody? When I was in high school, there were no cell phones or text or email. But we had a time limit on the phone at our house. 10-minute phone calls. And if you went over the 10 limits, my dad would pick up the extension from the other room and say, "Terry has to go now." Embarrassing. When I first moved to Chicago and Walter and I started dating, I lived in Wheeling. He lived in South Shore, the south side of Chicago. AT&T had these things called message units. You remember that? When they clocked your phone time between municipalities. And it was almost like a mini long-distance charge. When I finally moved into the city, I was like, thank God, no more message units. Because how did we spend our time other than being together? Talking, communicating. I'm still one of those people that likes quality time. I want to sit down across a table, share a meal, sit down and talk. I don't necessarily want to We go to a lot of concerts. We do a lot of things in support of one another. But when it comes down to really bonding and getting to know somebody, time is just irreplaceable. There's no substitute for spending time. And God is like that. There's no substitute for abiding, remaining, either in prayer or devotion or studying the Word. There's simply no substitute for building that relationship with God over a period of time, getting to know how He speaks to you, getting to understand what it is that He's saying to you, building that relationship. And that's the kind of relationship that Jesus wanted because it's the kind of relationship that He had with His Father. Every time you see Jesus breaking away from the crowd, He's going off to pray. He's going off to prepare Himself, and then He comes back, and then He's ready to do the ministry. Then He's ready to show the patience. Then He's ready to give the love. And that's when God gets glorified. Because it's not just you or me being nice and so wonderful. We all know that we are not perfect. What glorifies God is when we understand that because love isn't easy, and because love matters, and because it glorifies God, we have to spend time building ourselves up spiritually so that we're ready, so that we're able to share that love, to be those people, to be those loving, welcoming, inclusive, going the extra mile, sharing a little more of ourselves than we might feel like we want to, because it matters, and because it glorifies God. That's how they will know that we are disciples, not just because we're here together on Sunday. People will drive by and see the cars parked and say, oh, those people are at church. But when they'll really see the love, it's when they see us serving at pads, when they see us greeting people for the back-to-school fair, and even when we greeted last weekend for the women's tea. The place looked great. We had great entertainment. But it was our warmth and our love and our hospitality. It was our men serving tea and feeding us food. And people being in flip-flops washing teapots and saucers after it was all over. That's the love they didn't see. But that's what made that event work. It wasn't easy, but my God, it mattered. And God gets glorified every time we go beyond ourselves and share real love, hard love, sometimes even tough love with people who matter. Let's not ever forget how important love is. It hangs on our wall. We sing about it all the time. But let's not let it be reduced to platitudes. Let's remember that at the heart of this message is the love of God, who loved us so much that He sent His Son and wants us to continue to share that message by doing what Jesus did, and that's to share the love that He had known. And if you're not clear about the love of God, boy, I want to have a conversation with you. I've got stories, I've got testimonies, I'm sure every person in this room does. And sometimes that's how you can show other people love, by saying, you know, I was sick and I prayed. And you bring someone dinner or coffee, or you stop by or send a card. What you're saying to them is, I'm loving you because God has loved me. There simply is no greater love than to do as the message calls and put your life on the line. We need not face death in order to show people how much we care. But we can go beyond what we think we can do. Love isn't easy. Love matters. And love glorifies God. And if we can learn to remain, to abide, to be at home, as Eugene Peterson says, in God's love, we can be equipped to share this life-giving, life-altering, life-transforming, life-saving love with everyone we come into contact with. There is no greater love than that which God equips us to share. Let's not be afraid of going deeper in that love, so that when we share it, it's something that really matters. God bless you. And remember, God loves you, and so do I. Amen.